Growing up, Daddy always insisted that honesty is the best policy. Mr. Contest Chair. But as I got older, I began to doubt the wisdom of my father's words. It was only just last fall, I was going for a walk. It was a cold, blustery November afternoon. And as I walked down the street, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. It fluttered in the wind, and I bent down, I picked it up, and it was a $2 bill. I looked at it, and all of a sudden, something else caught my eye. This time it was moving faster, and I had to rush across. I picked it up. It was a $10 bill. Well then, wouldn't you believe it? I saw something else, but this time it whizzed right by. I had to run into the road to retrieve a $20 bill. Daddy also said that money didn't grow on trees. And I stood there waiting for that 50 to flutter by, but it never did. So I walked on home. But I couldn't settle. Daddy's words were echoing in my head. Honesty is the best policy. He was right. That $32 didn't belong to me, so I got in my car. I drove in rush hour traffic, and then I couldn't find a parking spot. But eventually I walked into the police station. It was a queue of people, and when it was my turn, I walked up to the counter. I placed my $32 on the counter, and I told the constable my story. He looked at me. He placed his hands on his hips. He rolled his eyes, and he said, Madam, we're not accustomed to older ladies coming in here, claiming that they found money lying on the street. But Constable, I thought, I will tell you what we will do. He picked up the $30. This is going into the police fund. And this, madam, is for you, for your trouble. I walked out of the police station and found a $40 parking ticket on my car. 3.5 hours of my time, and for my trouble, I get $2. I asked myself, is honesty really the best policy, sir? Well, then I started thinking. I was going back in time, back to the time when I too was in the dating game. And I remembered Graham. He made my heart flutter. Those dark eyes, they went right through me. And Graham sung in the choir. So I joined the choir so I could get to know him better. One slight problem. I cannot sing a single word or note in tune. The choir master soon realized that somebody wasn't singing in tune and asked who it was, but of course nobody owned up. So then he went down the rows, and when it came to my turn, I went... I don't think he ever really understood that it was me that didn't sing in tune. But Graham and I didn't get too far. Instead of asking me for a date, he asked me if I would sing a duet with him. And then there was Robert. Robert was fascinating. He was interested in so many things. I gave him a list this long of all of the things that I did. I even told him that I played tennis. I made sure I didn't tell him about music, but I did say I played tennis, even though I don't know my forehand from my backhand. That's wonderful news, he said. I'm the champion of my club. Let's play. Meet me at the courts next Wednesday. So next Wednesday comes along and I have to save my face. I did show up at the courts, limping along with a big bandage on my ankle, claiming that I sprained it the night before playing tennis. Then there was Uncle John. Well, Uncle John was a few years older than me, quite a few years, but he was very sophisticated. He was a banker down in the city of London. and he had a really, really smart car. And I had the perfect opportunity to get to know Uncle John. It was at my cousin Maxine's wedding. We had about 3-4 dances together, and then he had to excuse himself because he was driving the bride and the groom to the airport. So I met up with a bunch of other guests, and we had these big boxes of confetti. I think you have confetti here. And we went out and we waited by Uncle John's car, and as the bride and groom's luggage came out, we opened it up and we stuffed all this confetti in their luggage, did it up, put it back in the car. And then I found an umbrella, so I opened that up and I stuffed the confetti in it and I rolled it back up again and I put it in the car. We waved the bride and groom off and wished them well. 2 months went by. And I was so excited. There was a family dinner and Uncle John was going to be there. He bought a new dress. But as I sat there and Uncle John walked in, he didn't have that usual smile on his face. He had a frown. He sat down and he said, "I'm looking for a confession." He told the story. He had a very important client who was at the bank, and Uncle John was taking him out for lunch. As they stood on the steps of the bank, it started to rain. So Uncle John, in an effort to protect his client, put up the umbrella. Yes, he protected him from the rain, but he was showered with confetti, much to the amusement of all those going out to lunch. But Uncle John wasn't amused. I never ever admitted that. But how could Uncle John and I have a relationship with that secret between us? So that brings me back to the question, is honesty the best policy? Every time I look at this, I ask myself that question. But I'll leave it to you, ladies and gentlemen, to decide. Mr. Contest.